So, what are you doing now? That's not small talk. That's a measurement because there's a kind of answer people seem to be waiting for, something impressive, something busy, something that proves I'm still useful. And when I don't have that answer, I feel it immediately. Not motivation, I feel pressure. Retirement advisors love the word purpose. I get it. It sounds very noble, but the way it's often handed to people like us, it can be the same old work life mindset, just dressed up a little bit. Start a business, volunteer, look at all this free time you have, fill every weekday so nobody has to wonder if I'm doing enough. And I want to say this plainly, I didn't retire to have to keep proving myself. After decades of schedules and deadlines, I'm not rebuilding the same treadmill with a nicer name. Some mornings the house is quiet, the coffee is hot, and the day is open. And my mind still goes straight to, okay, I need to have a big purpose today. And let me call it what it is. That's not purpose, that's pressure. And I think I'm done letting pressure run my retirement because I've seen what pressure does. It can take something that was supposed to be restful and turn it into just another job. So I learned this the hard way with a hobby. A few years ago, I took up jewelry making, and for a while, it was very relaxing. Quiet work, hands busy, mind calm. I loved it. But then, about 9 months into it, I talked myself into something. I decided, I should make a piece of jewelry for every woman and girl in my extended family for Christmas. It was like 20 some pieces of jewelry. And that's when it changed. What had been a peaceful little hobby turned into a pressure filled sprint. Suddenly, I had a deadline, December 24th, and a mental spreadsheet running in my head. Who would like what? How many have I got done? How much time do I have left to go? And the strangest part is maybe not that strange, I guess. Nobody asked me to do it. I brought that all on myself. I put that weight on myself. And the result was predictable. I got everything done. Everybody loved it, but I was burnt out and I never went back to jewelry making. And that's what I mean. I don't just carry a work mindset. Sometimes I smuggle it into the one place it doesn't belong, my rest. Because there's this old voice that follows me around, make it useful, make it count, make it impressive. But retirement is teaching me something different. Fulfillment isn't always a big mission. Sometimes it's a good day that doesn't need to justify itself. Maybe a slow morning, a quiet house, a hobby that stays a hobby. And here's what I'm noticing: the moment I start to add pressure, I start to lose the peace. So the thing I'm trying to protect isn't my output. I'm trying to protect fulfillment. And for me, fulfillment isn't some big achievement, it's presence, the practical kind, where I'm actually here for my own life and I stop turning my days into deadlines. And that's harder than it sounds because I can turn almost anything into a deadline, even rest. And that's the trap. Pressure turns the day into a job. So when I talk about fulfillment, this is what I mean. I mean presence, you know, being where my feet are, not thinking about where I have to be next. Being where my feet are without trying to earn the day, because purpose, the way people usually mean it, is about doing more, doing bigger, something that, makes people sit up and take notice. But the best parts of my retirement so far have very little to do with doing. They have everything to do with presence, which for me is what fulfillment looks like up close. Not rushing through a conversation, not half listening while my mind builds a checklist, not treating the day like a problem to solve because being present means I can't hide behind busyness. If I stay busy, I don't have to notice what I'm feeling. I don't have to notice the empty spots. I don't have to notice the fear that someday I might not be needed the way I used to be. But when I slow down, I start to notice things. And somehow this is the surprise. When I choose presence, when I choose to notice things, life feels a little richer. Not louder, not more exciting, just richer, more meaningful. The old Roman philosopher Seneca had a line that talked about this. He said, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And I don't hear that as a condemnation. I hear it as a warning. Don't miss what's already here right in front of you. A peaceful house, a body that still works reasonably well, well enough to go take a walk. Notice a good conversation that doesn't feel rushed, a moment with one of my grandkids where I'm not entertaining them, I'm just being there with them. When I was working, success was easy to measure. It was a title, raises, milestones, quarterly reviews, deadlines met. But in retirement, the most important things don't fit on a resume. Things like time, things like a quieter mind, peaceful home, contentment, if I can learn it. You know, the Apostle Paul said this better than I can in Philippians chapter 4. He says, "I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well or fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength." And to me, the key word in that is learned. Now that matters to me because contentment isn't my default. I tend to drift toward pressure, usually self imposed. I drift towards proving something to myself or to others. So in retirement, I'm not trying to build a new scoreboard. I'm trying to learn contentment. And this is where I've landed for now. I don't think I need to save the world to justify my retirement. I don't think I need to reinvent myself to prove that I still matter. I think retirement is a success if I can find deep joy, in simple, meaningful moments without needing them to impress anyone. I'm still learning. I don't have this all figured out. But if that question, "So what are you doing now?" has been annoying you too, I just want to say I get it. And I'm starting to believe something I didn't believe at first. A quiet retirement is not a failed retirement. It might just actually be the first time I've read room to actually live. So take good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.